Yeah, I guess maybe give a little bit of your background and kick this thing off.
Background. I got a lot of background, but as far as the music community goes, I mean, originally, listening to the radio and things like that. But I think when I started actually participating in it, I was kind of an organizer in the anti-war movement back in the early 70s. And that kind of led into a position. I worked as a union representative for about 9 years. And those type of, activities, they kind of lend themselves to, folk type songs and things like that, songs of protest and all that. And
so did you play some, what was it, Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie?
Definitely Woody Guthrie, yeah.
And who was the banjo?
Oh, Pete Seeger.
Pete Seeger,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that whole genre, and even going back to, old labor songs of, I don't know if you're familiar with the IWW, but the International Workers of the World, and things like that, Yeah. So it kind of, grounded some of my tastes in music at that time. Well, I mean, I'm listening to other things as well.
Yeah.
But eventually got involved with a group of other people. And we started doing concerts in church basements and things like that, basically producing the concerts. And
this was all in Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that led to my wife and I opening up a coffee house back in the early 80s. And we're primarily, our goal was to present music. And it was kind of a joke, how do you make a small fortune in folk music? You start with a large one. We should have emphasized the coffee rather than the music. We would have made a lot more money. But we met a lot of people through that. And that was actually my first real introduction to instrumental Irish music. Up until then, in the 70s, like the Irish rebel songs and things like that became popular. Yeah. The Clancy Brothers and all that.
So it must have been a milieu of people that were separate from the main currents of music going on. Because the early 80s was Devo and, I don't know, Madonna was around then.
Right.
But, Journey, a lot of synth pop and stuff was coming in. Punk was just kind of at its heyday and going out. So it must have been a clientele that was contrary a little bit.
In the 80s, believe it or not, most people don't know it, but there was really actually a resurgence of folk music in the 80s. In fact, we joke around, we call it the folk scare of the 80s, because there was some rejuvenation of it. There were people in their, late teens, 20s, 30s who were starting to pick up, the banjo, guitar, mandolin, stuff like that.
Was that because of seeds planted in the 70s, you think?
It's a good question. I think you had some new people coming out. In Chicago, we had people like Steve Goodman, writing songs. John Prine. John Prine actually was in the 70s along with Steve Goodman, but their careers, went longer than that. So we had, there was a very healthy folk music community doing original music and revivalists and that kind of thing. You could get involved. You could go get a guitar, learn 3 chords, and go join a bunch of people at the park, and play some tunes. Another thing too, I think a lot of us were having kids at that time, and it's a very family-oriented type of activity and music. You don't have to worry about lyrics and things like that. I had 2 kids at the time who were very young, and they grew up around music. It's great.
And most times, other people, if they're going out to see music, it was probably in a bar. You don't bring kids to a bar.
Exactly. Yeah. Although talking about when you get into Irish music, it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
But really, it was at that time with the coffee house that I met, like Liz Carroll, she came to play for us. There were some younger Irish bands. One is Saura Music. They were a group of students from the University of Chicago who were really wonderful on their instruments. There was a group called the Drovers, which was kind of an Irish rock band. And their claim to fame, if you ever saw the movie Backdraft, there's a scene in there with an Irish band in a pub.
Okay.
And that's the Drovers.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew a couple of them, and one of them is still teaching. He has his, his own music school and that kind of thing in Chicago. But I mean, they appeal to the younger people because it was that kind of, Irish rock and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some names. That's funny because I play with different people, and whenever you mention Irish, they always come up with Dropkick Murphys or some of these other like punkish. Yeah. It's like, no, there's other Irish stuff. Or they mention Metallica, Whiskey in the Jar. It's like that's kind of the filter that Irish music has gone through the pop and the rock and the punk lens, and that's. I don't know, they kind of take over the conversation. Like, I have so much to say about Irish music, but then they always bring up Metallica, and it kind of shuts it down for me.
Well, it's funny to show you the train of how things go. The Metallica version of Whiskey in the Jar is almost note for note the same as the version that Thin Lizzy did back in the 70s.
Okay, so it's a copy of a copy.
It's a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
Because actually when Thin Lizzy did it, Thin Lizzy did not want to put that out on a record. Yeah. But the manager or the record promoter, whatever it was, they said, no, this is really good. So they put it on a record. Yeah. But so it's during that period though that it kind of opened my eyes. For instance, when we booked Liz Carroll, a friend of mine was her guitar player on her first album, and I was kind of familiar. And I said, well, does she sing or anything? No, she just plays the fiddle. She does some original on her own. And, I'll be backing her on guitar. Yeah. And I thought, we're going to bring her in and she's going to do 2 sets of fiddle music.
Yeah.
We're going to have to see
how... The 60s and 70s folk music where we're coming from is almost everybody sings every song.
Everyone sings, So with her coming in, it really opened my eyes. Because she was so wonderful, and she just captured the room. And the same was true of this group I mentioned, Saura Music. We had a couple members of the Drovers come in, and so anyway, it kind of opened my eyes to the instrumental version and how moving. It could be. So, but I was listening to a lot of different things there. We're booking different people and all that. And it wasn't, because I was followed in that, I've been a guitar player a long time, but during that period, I really wasn't playing. I didn't have enough time. And it wasn't until we closed the coffee house, and in the 90s, I started playing again.
Now, did you start the coffee house when you had kids?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was a lot to juggle at that time.
Oh yeah, I had a full-time job. So,
Okay.
So it was kind of nuts. But in the 90s, I started playing with a couple friends, and we would go do, any gig we can get. A lot of coffee shops, things like that. Come home with a lot of singles. But we started experimenting with the band. We started out as more of an old-time folk kind of thing, but eventually we got it more into bluegrass, and then we started interjecting kind of Irish tunes into it. I always liked like Doc Watson and Norman Blake, and talk about instrumental music. Doc did sing, so did Norman, But they essentially, they started out, they were just flat picking fiddle tunes, from out this way, really. And those fiddle tunes that they picked up here, came from the Scots-Irish, who, were here, a couple hundred years ago, basically.
Yeah.
So, anyway, when the band broke up, I had friends who were playing strictly Irish music, locally, and I'd run into them at festivals and all that. Mm-hmm. So I decided to give that a try. And playing rhythm guitar in Irish music, it's a little trickier than you think,
Yeah.
And
rhythmically very accurate.
Yeah.
Yes. And did you play in the coffee house with your friends, the Irish music?
Not at the one I owned.
Okay. Yeah. Other places.
I probably played a couple times, but yeah. So and that was around, I think, 2006 that I really, just kind of jumped into it. Mm-hmm. There was a local music club, Irish music club, that was part of Comhaltas Ceoltóirí Éireann, which is a huge international Irish organization. And so I played, I got better with guitar, and so that's mainly what I was doing. Also, I got involved in the club. I was treasurer for a while and that kind of thing.